A recent article revealed that despite the movie being highly praised, the making of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was an absolute nightmare. And those responsible are unfortunately the same guys who get the most credit for Spider-Verse, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. According to 4 anonymous animators who worked on the sequel, those two caused the production to become a toxic work environment. So you know, when making movies, whenever there's a need to go and change things in the story, that's mostly reserved for the pre-production so that only the writers, the editors, and the story artists would go and handle that. However, when Phil Lord wants to do a story change, he makes it everyone's problem. He demands that every scene must be fully animated from start to finish, and only then does Phil determine if a scene is good or not for the final film. Which, more so than it doesn't, he throws all that hard work in the trash. In fact, it has happened that the animators had to fully develop a scene up to 5 times in a row just so that it could have Phil Lord's approval. And what's even worse is that Lord is one of those people that can never stick with one idea. So even if there was a scene that Lord approved, he would change up the script the next day, and that approved scene has become a complete waste. In fact, that case can be so bad, there was a period of 3 to 6 months where Lord was really changing things up with the story. All the animators were literally sitting there doing nothing. As for Chris Miller, the animators don't have much to say about him, mainly because he was almost never there. The animators said that the only time Chris ever stepped in as a producer was during the last 2 months of production. I'm sure he was busy doing something, but I'm sure the grand majority of the time was not related to Across the Spider-Verse. And as a result, this type of work ethic caused the animators to have some negative consequences, where they are left always overworked, continuously burned out, and completely demotivated. Especially when they had to work 11 hours a day, 7 days a week, and an average of 70 hours per week. Also, while there were over 1,000 people who worked on the movie, over 100 of them quit because they couldn't handle the toxicity. And the worst thing about all this? This didn't just happen during Across the Spider-Verse. That's just how Lord and Miller make movies. This toxic work environment was also found in the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs films, the Lego movies, the Mitchells vs. the Machines, and the Spider-Verse films. In fact, not only was this the reason why Lucasfilm fired Lord and Miller from the Han Solo movie, but it's also the reason why Across the Spider-Verse was delayed by over a year. I won't deny that Lord and Miller are talented filmmakers, but with how they completely exploit their animators, it's amazing how they could be both so talented, yet so incompetent at the same time. For the first time since 1960, actors have joined writers in one of the biggest strikes in Hollywood history, making several demands for their rights in their respective occupations, including better wages so that they could at least afford having a home and buying groceries, and job security so that their livelihoods are not threatened by AI. Not to mention for studios to stop removing content that's exclusive to streaming, because they're also taking away a lot of people's residuals. But some might be wondering, what are the consequences of this strike? How is this going to affect Hollywood and especially your entertainment? Well, first off, almost all productions have been put on hold. With no actors and no writers, there's no way to make progress on any major projects. And yes, this doesn't just affect live-action productions, but animated movies and series as well. Meaning that the majority of projects that were scheduled for 2024 and 2025 are going to be delayed. There will be a few productions that will try to work around the strike by hiring body doubles or even using AI, but I'll tell you now that they're gonna learn the hard way that those are not good alternatives. Also, because of the strike, most celebrities are not gonna attend any major events, especially for the purpose of promoting any new projects that they're in. The events are technically still gonna happen, but they're gonna be a lot more awkward without any celebrities. So it's gonna be weird to see them not show up at any red carpet premieres, conventions like Comic-Con, press tours, or film festivals. So you can imagine how major events like the San Diego Comic-Con or the Toronto Film Festival is pretty much panicking right now. And it's also worth noting that there is a chance that studios will try to find a way to produce content without the need of actors and writers. And the quickest solution to that is by making more unscripted content. So don't be surprised if you end up seeing a lot more new reality shows than usual. So to make a long story short of how Hollywood is going to be during the big strike, you remember how bad they were hit back in 2020 because of the pandemic? It's going to be kind of like that. It can happen when the production of a movie can jump from one animation studio to another. While these moments are rare, it's not impossible that an animation studio would pick up something that another left off. In fact, we recently just saw that with Nimona going from Blue Sky to Annapurna. But one great example of that is Sony's Vivo. which was originally a DreamWorks movie. Back in 2009, after the huge success of In the Heights, Lin-Manuel Miranda started work on the film, and soon teamed up with DreamWorks Animation in order to bring this entire feature to life. However, it ultimately fell apart at the beginning of 2015, when financial troubles caused DreamWorks Animation to go and downsize, thus canceling several projects, including Vivo. However, Miranda was not ready to give up on his dream project. In 2016, after the massive success he had with Hamilton, Miranda teamed up with Sony Pictures Animation in order to bring the project back to life. And after a few years of getting the movie back on track, Vivo finally got its chance on the spotlight on August of 2021 on Netflix. I personally really like this story because much like Vivo himself, who had to go on this big journey from the Havana to Miami, the production itself went on a similar journey going from DreamWorks to Sony. South Park is both one of the edgiest and one of the most celebrated shows on television. But as we all know, this edginess often gets them into a lot of trouble. And that is especially the case with some Muslims. One of the biggest sins that you can ever commit in the Islam religion is to show a depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. But you know South Park, they look at that rule and just say, whatever, I get to do what I want! And thus, in the Season 5 episode called Super Best Friends, one of the heroes of the group alongside the other religious figures is indeed the Prophet Muhammad. As a result, not only did Muslims get massively upset over the episode, but the show's creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, ended up getting a lot of messages from them that they would, well, you know. And you know what's the craziest thing about that? That didn't stop them from wanting to show Muhammad. In the episode Cartoon Wars Part 1 and 2, 200 and 201, they would keep on teasing that they would show the Prophet Muhammad again, which continued the cycle of more angry Muslims and more messages of and this is exactly why to this day, all 5 of those episodes have either been heavily censored or just flat out banned entirely. And considering that we are talking about South Park, this is only the tip of the iceberg of their controversies. With Mutant Mayhem coming out of its shell, people have been talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again. But of course, with the internet being the internet, some discussions can get sour very quickly. And that is definitely the case with April O'Neil, who not only looks nothing like the white redhead that everybody simps for, but especially the fact that she is black. But it does raise the question, what was April O'Neil's original race? And the answer to that is, who the fridge knows? Even the creators are pretty mixed up about it. While she was originally intended to be Asian, Peter Laird always envisioned her as white of English descent. But according to Kevin Eastman, he named April after his then girlfriend, who is of mixed race and part of that is black. Which is why Eastman said that April O'Neil is also of mixed race. So nobody can accuse people of race swapping April O'Neil, because she's been doing that since the very beginning. Did you know that there is an environmental message in SpongeBob SquarePants? And this isn't anything new that they're doing in the recent episodes. This is something that they have done since the very beginning of the show. And I can guarantee that you saw this without even knowing it. So you know how the homes in Bikini Bottom always have a particular shape? You know, like a pineapple, a tiki head, a rock, an anchor, or whatever. And you know how most of the other homes in Bikini Bottom are these metallic things? Well, believe it or not, those are actually car mufflers that were thrown down to the bottom of the ocean because of pollution. And just like fish in real life, it may mess up their ecosystem, but the only thing they can do is just make the most out of it and turn it into their shelters. I mean, considering that we are talking about a show set in the ocean filled with aquatic life, there's gotta be some kind of environmental awareness somewhere. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is debatably the greatest crossover in cinema history, especially with many classic cartoon characters that you would never expect that they would come together in one screen. But did you know that not all the characters accepted the invite? There are actually a handful of cartoons that the filmmakers were not able to get because they were not able to get the rights for their appearance. These include the cast of Popeye, Tom and Jerry, Little Lulu, the Terrytoons characters, and Casper. In fact, that was part of the reason why they had to delete the Marvin Acme funeral scene, since certain characters like Popeye, Bluto, and Casper were required to be there. That, and what was required to mix the live action and animation was considered to be way too complicated. Which is honestly too bad, because before it was deleted, this was considered to be Steven Spielberg's favorite scene of the movie.
Aw, poor fella.
Yeah, ain't I a stinker?
Everyone loves a good parody, but there are some parodies that can be so good, they could set a brand new standard to what they were parodying. And the best example of that is Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. When director Chuck Jones and writer Mike Maltese created the characters in 1948, they wanted to make a parody of those classic cat and mouse chase cartoons like Tom and Jerry, and really make all those failed attempts of trying to catch the Roadrunner over the top, especially with all those Acme gadgets that the Coyote ordered. But after their debut in 1949 with the short, Fast, and the Furriest, the cartoons became a sensation, even getting an Oscar nomination with the short Be Prepared. And since then, the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner shorts are some of the most prominent examples of chase cartoons. And on a side note, in the 1960s, Chuck Jones went on to create cartoons for the characters that he parodied, Tom and Jerry, to which in theory sounds like the perfect formula, but in practice... Many people say that inspiration can come from the most unexpected places. And the best example of that is one of the biggest festivals in Buffalo, New York, where the inspiration of the event is none other than Osmosis Jones. Yeah, you remember that movie, right? In one scene of the movie, Bill Murray was excited to bring his daughter to a certain event.
Buffalo, New York. The Buffalo Wing Festival this weekend.
Oh. Yeah, great.
But here's the thing, in real life, there's no such thing as a Buffalo Wings Festival. This is where a man named Drew Cerza comes in, where he saw the movie back in 2001 and asked himself, wait a minute, why the fridge doesn't Buffalo actually have a Buffalo Wings Festival? So the following year in 2002, Cerza and his community got together to create the National Buffalo Wing Festival, which went on to become a major event that happens every year during Labor Day. And not only have over 1 million people attended the event, but people have eaten over 200 tons of chicken wings during that time. Especially when they have some very competitive chicken wing eating contests. So to remind you again about the moral of this story, true inspiration can come from the most unexpected places, even if it's from Bill Murray and his cartoony innards. You may remember the article that talked about how making Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was a nightmare for the animators. And the two responsible for the toxic work environment were Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who not only practice a dangerous work ethic on that movie, but that's just how they make virtually all their films. Well, guess what? We got an update on that controversy. In an interview with Variety, Phil Lord and Chris Miller were asked if they would like to address the criticisms regarding the working conditions of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This is what Phil Lord had to say. In terms of Spider-Verse, that was a really hard movie to make. We're really proud of how hard everybody worked, and it was very demanding. But we're just really proud of the crew and everything they put into it. What the hell is this? Is that it? No apology? No acknowledgement on the flaws of your work ethic? No realization that your animators shouldn't have gone through that? This is worthless! You've been called out for constantly overworking your animators, and the best response you could think of is just a simple proud of you message? What do you think this is, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs? Did you really think you could solve your problems just by saying I'm proud of you as if it's going to make everything better? It's crazy how they're saying that they care about labor unions and workers' rights, yet the way that they treat their animators is part of the problem. They might as well just admit that they don't care about the well-beings of their employees. Listen, if you want to prove that you actually care about the rights of people working in the entertainment industry, then stop treating your workers like paper by overworking them.